I want you to picture a scenario. It's, let's say, a Saturday morning. You're at the driving range.
We've all been there.
You pull out the driver, take a massive swing,
Yeah.
and, well, the ball starts left, climbs high, and then peels off violently to the right. Straight into the woods. The
Yeah.
classic banana ball.
Ah, yes. The shot that has plagued, 90% of amateur golfers for the last 100 years?
Exactly. Now, in the old days, say the 1950s, if you did that, a local pro might wander over, squint a bit, and say something like, "You lifted your head."
Or your left knee dipped too much? Something about a reverse pivot.
Right. They would diagnose the aesthetic. They'd critique what you look like. It was very much, you don't look like the diagram of the book, so you must be wrong.
Precisely.
But today, we're doing a deep dive on a man who would have looked at that exact same slice and said, I don't care where your knee was. I really don't care if you lifted your head. The ball went right because the club face was open relative to the path. Period.
It sounds so incredibly simple when you put it like that, doesn't it?
It does.
But that shift in thinking from how do I look to what did the club actually do to the ball, that basically invented modern golf instruction.
We are, of course, talking about John Jacobs. And I have to admit, looking through this stack of notes and articles, it's quite surprising he isn't a household name outside of golf.
Oh, absolutely. If you play, he's a god. If you don't, well, he's almost invisible.
He's a titan of the game.
I would argue he's the most influential figure in the history of teaching the game. We're talking about a man born in 1925 who died in 2017. And in that time, he completely reverse-engineered the sport. He took it from an art form based on superstition, really, and turned it into a science based on cause and effect.
And the mission for this deep dive is, I think, quite specific. We aren't just recounting the biography of an old British golfer. We want to understand his core philosophy, which is printed right there in bold on his most famous book, The Ball Never Lies.
The ball never lies. It's such a profound statement. It's not just a slogan, it's a worldview. It's about stripping away all the noise. The ego, the theories, the correct way to swing, and looking strictly at the output.
The result.
The result. Jacobs was doing data analytics before computers existed. He did it with his eyes and a very deep understanding of physics.
So let's get into it. To understand why his approach was such a revolution, we have to understand what he was revolting against. Take us back to the beginning. Who was John Jacobs before he became the doctor of golf?
Well, for that, we have to go back to Yorkshire, England in 1925. This is the interwar period. His father was a golf professional at a club called Lindrick, which sounds quite grand, but you have to understand the social context of Britain at that time.
The sources paint a pretty gritty picture of that. This wasn't the country club lifestyle we might imagine today.
Not at all. In the 1920s and 30s in Britain, the class system was incredibly rigid. Golf professionals were, in essence, servants. They were tradesmen.
So they weren't allowed in the clubhouse.
Not to have a drink with the members, no. They used the back door, they worked in the shop, repaired old hickory shafts with glue and twine, gave lessons for pennies, and maybe played a few tournaments for rather meager prize money.
So he didn't grow up with a silver spoon. He grew up smelling varnish and leather.
Precisely. It was a working-class existence. But he was a natural. The sources mention he was a scratch golfer, meaning he could shoot par or better by the age of 13.
Incredible.
But then, of course, history intervenes. The Second World War.
He served in the RAF, didn't he?
He did. And, like so many of that generation, he comes out of the war in the late 40s with a different perspective on things. The world had changed, and he decides to turn professional.
Now, this is a key point the sources highlight, and I think it's important. The old trope is, those who can't do, teach.
Right.
But Jacobs wasn't a failed player. Far from it.
No, and that is absolutely crucial for his credibility. He was a world-class player. He played on the European circuit before the European Tour really existed as we know it. But his Ryder Cup record, that's the standout statistic here. 1955.
He went undefeated, is that right?
2 matches, 2 wins. He beat the Americans. And in 1955, you have to remember, the Americans dominated global golf. For a British pro to go out and beat the best of them, well, that gave him an aura.
So later on, when he stood on a driving range and told you how to grip a club.
He wasn't just some theorist from an ivory tower. He'd been inside the ropes. He had handled the pressure.
So here's the friction point that I found interesting. He's a great player. He's winning. Why pivot to teaching? Usually a player will ride that career as long as they possibly can. What drove him into instruction?
It was frustration. But not with his own game. It was frustration with how the game was being taught to everyone else. You have to imagine the landscape of golf instruction in the 1950s.
What was the standard operating procedure back then?
Incredibly dogmatic. Almost cultish, in a way. You had these method schools. A famous pro would say, "This is the only way to swing. You must have a neutral grip. You must keep your left arm ramrod straight."
So it was purely about how it looked. If I had a weird loopy swing, but I hit it dead straight, they'd tell me I was wrong.
Exactly right. They would try to tear down your swing to make it look like a textbook diagram, even if it completely ruined your ability to hit the ball. It was style over substance. And Jacobs, with this very logical, almost engineering type mind, looked at this and thought, this is madness.
Because he saw players winning with ugly swings.
He saw Bobby Locke, a South African champion who hooked the ball wildly but got it in the hole. He saw amateurs with perfect-looking swings who couldn't break 90. He realized the industry was focusing on the cause, the body motion, without properly understanding the effect.
The impact.
The impact.
And that, I suppose, leads us directly to the mantra, the ball never lies.
The central thesis of his entire life's work.
I want to challenge this a little, though. It sounds catchy, doesn't it? Almost like a marketing slogan. But isn't it just obvious? If the ball goes into the trees, of course it's not lying. What was so radical about stating that?
It's radical because he used the ball as the primary diagnostic tool, not the player's body. Before Jacobs, a lesson started with the pro looking at you. Your posture, your grip, your backswing.
And Jacobs.
Jacobs started the lesson by looking at the flight of the ball.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that change the whole interaction?
Well, think of it like a car crash investigator. They look at the skid marks and the damage to the vehicles to reconstruct what happened. They don't start by asking the driver, "So what were you thinking just before the collision?"
You look at the evidence, the physics of it all.
Exactly. Jacobs realized the golf ball is an inanimate object. It has no brain. It doesn't know who you are. It only responds perfectly and honestly to the collision with the club face.
So instead of guessing based on how a swing felt or how it looked, he interrogated the ball.
He worked backward from the crash site. That's his diagnostic thinking.
Yeah.
He'd watch a ball curve right and say, right, the ball is curving right. Physics dictates that means the club face was open relative to the path. Now, let's figure out why the face was open.
Let's get into the weeds on this because the ball flight laws are mentioned in every single source we have. This seems to be the toolkit he gave to the world. And I think even today, people get this wrong.
Oh, they do. It can be quite counterintuitive.
So walk us through the basics.
Yeah.
What are these laws?
Simplified, there are two main variables. You have the path, the direction the club head is traveling, and you have the face, where the club face is pointing at the moment of impact.
Right. Path and face.
For decades, the common wisdom was that you swung the club in the direction you wanted the ball to go. If I want to hit it at the target, I swing at the target.
That sounds logical enough.
But it's incomplete. Jacobs was brilliant at explaining this. He used the analogy of a table tennis paddle. He explained that the ball starts roughly where the face is pointing, and it curves away from the path.
So if I swing the club out to the right, but my club face is pointing at the target.
The ball will start at the target, but because you swung to the right of that, you've put hook spin on it, it will curve left.
And the slice. Our banana ball into the woods.
That happens because your path is going left. You're cutting across the ball, but your face is open, pointing to the right. The divergence between those two is what creates that massive slice spin.
He was one of the first to clearly articulate it like that.
He was. He made it simple. If you want to fix the curve, you have to change the relationship between the face and the path.
He used that hammer analogy as well, didn't he?
Yes, this is classic Jacobs. He'd say, if you want to drive a nail straight into a piece of wood, you have to hit it square. If you hit the nail with a glancing blow from the side, you'll bend the nail. The golf ball is just a nail. If it curves, you didn't hit it square.
And he figured all of this out without any high-speed cameras or fancy computers.
That's the genius of the man. He deduced it. He could stand on a range, watch a ball fly 200 yards, and tell you within a degree or two what your club face did at impact. He reverse-engineered the physics by eye.
That brings up a massive point about method versus diagnosis. The sources say he despised method teaching, but surely every teacher has a method.
He had a method of teaching, but he did not have a method of swinging. That's the key distinction. A method teacher says, everyone must swing like Ben Hogan.
One size fits all.
Exactly. Jacob said, I don't care what your swing looks like as long as the impact is correct for you.
Which is incredibly democratizing, isn't it?
It's a huge relief. It means you don't need the flexibility of a 20-year-old gymnast. If you're a 60-year-old accountant with a bad back, Jacobs would find a way for you to deliver the club squarely to the ball. He fitted the swing to the person, not the person to some idealized swing.
So he takes this philosophy, and in the early 1970s, he writes the book, Practical Golf.
The Bible of golf instruction.
Is it really? I mean, sports books tend to age like milk. Techniques change, equipment evolves. Why is a book from 1972 still so relevant?
Because the laws of physics don't change, and because of its clarity. We've all read instruction manuals that are just impenetrable. Practical golf is conversational, it's witty, but most of all, it's visual.
The illustrations are iconic.
Just simple line drawings, arrows showing the path, lines showing the face. He stripped away all the jargon. He didn't talk about supination or dorsiflexion unless he absolutely had to. He spoke the language of the player.
And he didn't just write books. He built an empire. The John Jacobs Golf Schools. This is where the story shifts from him being a great teacher to, well, a great businessman.
This is really Act 3 of his life. Before Jacobs, golf lessons were a cottage industry. You went to your local chat, paid cash, got half an hour. Jacobs said, no, let's scale this. He created a curriculum.
He franchised his brain.
In essence, yes. He set up schools all over Europe, then he brought them to America. At one point, they were the biggest golf school entity in the world. But to do that, he had a problem. He couldn't teach every student himself.
He had to clone himself.
Correct. He had to teach teachers how to teach. And this is arguably his greatest legacy. If you take a lesson today from a PGA professional, almost anywhere in the world, the structure of that lesson, observe the ball flight, diagnose the fault, correct the impact, that comes directly from the training manuals Jacobs wrote.
So he is the teacher of teachers.
He literally wrote the book for the PGA of Europe. He turned golf instruction from a sort of dark art based on hunches into a profession with standards and a syllabus.
And the sources list some very heavy hitters who credit him. Butch Harmon.
Butch Harmon, arguably the most famous coach of the modern era, Tiger Woods' coach for years, cites Jacobs as his primary mentor, David Leadbetter. All these guys stand on his shoulders. Jacobs taught them that being a great coach isn't just about knowing the swing, it's about knowing the player in front of you.
There's a great anecdote in the notes about his personality. Because when you hear physics and diagnostics and manuals, you think of someone quite dry and academic. But he wasn't that, was he?
Far from it. He was a quintessential Englishman of that era, charming, witty, a fantastic storyteller. He used to do these clinics where he'd stand on a range with a microphone in front of 300 people. He'd pull some chap out of the crowd, someone with a terrible slice, and within 5 minutes have him hitting draws.
That's a high-risk strategy. What if it didn't work?
But it always worked because he wasn't guessing. It was like watching a magic trick, but then he would explain the trick to the whole audience. He'd say, look, all I did was change his grip slightly. That closed the face, and that fixed the slice. He demystified it live on stage.
So let's fast forward to today. We live in the era of TrackMan, 3D motion capture, force plates. You go to a modern lesson and it can look like a NASA lab. Does a book from the 70s still matter when we have lasers?
That is the big question, isn't it? And the answer is fascinating. If you look at the data that a $25,000 TrackMan machine spits out, what is the first thing it tells you?
Face angle, club path.
Face angle, club path, spin axis, the exact same things Jacobs was talking about 50 years ago. The technology has just confirmed what he saw with his naked eye. He was the human launch monitor.
But here's the counter-argument. If the computer can just tell me the data, do I still need the John Jacobs method?
Yes, and here is why. The computer gives you the what. It doesn't give you the how. A computer can tell you your face is 4 degrees open. It can't tell you why you did that or how to fix it in a way that your brain can actually process.
That's the human element, the art of coaching.
That's it. Jacobs was a master at translating data into a feeling. He wouldn't tell a student, you must close your face by 4 degrees. He'd say something like, imagine you're hitting the ball out to right field. He knew how to trick the brain into fixing the physics. The machine can't do that.
It feels like we sometimes get lost in the data today. Paralysis by analysis.
We absolutely do, and that's why many top coaches are actually going back to Jacobs' principles. They're realizing that simple is often better. The ball never lies, just cuts through all the noise. If the ball is doing what you want, stop tinkering.
Before we wrap up, we should touch on his later years. He wasn't just a teacher. He remained a leader in the sport.
He did indeed. He captained the European Ryder Cup team twice in '79 and '81, and this is significant because he helped modernize the event. Before Jacobs, the European team was, well, a bit of a shambles compared to the Americans. Poor travel arrangements, bad uniforms.
And he brought that same organizational rigor to the team.
He did. He demanded better treatment for his players. He professionalized the entire setup. You could say he laid the groundwork for Europe's dominance in the decades that followed. He was a statesman of the game.
So whether it's the swing, the teaching business, or the Ryder Cup, he just left it better than he found it.
He professionalized every single aspect of the game he touched.
When he died in 2017, the response was just universal respect.
Universal. You had the old guard, the young, tech-focused coaches, the players. Everyone acknowledged that without John Jacobs, the sport would look very, very different. We'd probably all still be trying to copy Harry Vardon's swing from 1900.
It really all circles back to that one core idea for me. The idea that you can cut through the noise simply by looking at the output.
That is the big takeaway. In a world, and let's step away from golf for a moment, in a world where we are often obsessed with process and optics and doing things the right way, Jacobs reminds us to just look at the result.
The ball.
The ball. If you are working 80 hours a week on a project and the project is failing, well, the ball is curving right. It doesn't matter that you're working hard. It doesn't matter that your process looks correct. The output tells you something is wrong with the mechanics.
You have to look at the crash site, the impact, to understand the accident. Don't justify the error, diagnose it.
Exactly. Don't blame the wind. Don't blame the equipment. Just look at the flight.
That is a very powerful place to land. It's about honesty, really.
Yeah,
The ball is the most honest thing in the world.
it really is.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. We've established that in golf, the ball flight is the undeniable truth. It reveals the reality of your impact, no matter how good your practice swing might have looked. My question to you is this. What is the ball in your own life right now? What is the one undeniable output? Maybe it's a recurring conflict in your relationships. Perhaps it's the stagnation in your savings account. Maybe it's the energy you feel when you wake up that is telling you the absolute truth about your process. And more importantly, do you have the courage to look at that flight path, accept it without making excuses, and domo, and change your impact?
That's the real challenge. Trust the flight, not the feeling.
That's our deep dive. Thanks for listening.